a PSA. There's probably going to be several cringe moments in this episode.
But that's okay. And like I said, I'm in my shoot my shot era, so maybe I should be more aggressive, perhaps. Hello, and welcome back to Bandy App. I am Alexis Sanchez.
And I'm Jose Sanchez.
Today's episode is entitled, We Listen and We Don't Judge. Now, the theme of this episode is making mistakes, because we all make mistakes. Have you made a mistake recently?
I've made a few.
Okay, I'll tell you about one that I've made. So on Friday, I got very distracted after school because someone came in with Girl Scout cookies, and that was very exciting. And I asked you how many boxes of Girl Scout cookies we could buy. And you said you needed to check how much cash you had. And so you sent me out to the car, your car, to get your wallet.
I do not recommend. I sometimes leave my wallet in my car. Do
Yeah.
not recommend.
Don't do that. But I went and got his wallet and I brought it back inside, and then we bought Girl Scout cookies. Now, I then subsequently left and went and got the children. I went and got the baby from daycare. We went to Sonic, and we live 30 minutes away. And so I got about 25 minutes away from work, and Jose called me and said, I'm not 100% sure, but I think you have my key.
No, it was, hey, I think you've done goofed.
Well, I did done.
And
But then he said, I think you have my
you had my keys, and she had to turn around and drive the 25
I
minutes
drove
back.
all the way back and then the 30 minutes back home. So that was a goof. That was a big goof.
Yeah, I mean, the student that we have that was selling the Girl Scout cookies, she makes a pretty hard sell. She's like one of the top sellers like in the nation as far as Girl Scout cookies go. And so, I mean, it was a mad dash. She had them on hand, and
She was ready to, she knew where to go. She knew to come to us.
yes, like, but that's kind of what happened. And I'm happy with our decision when it comes to cookies from Girl Scouts. The Thin Mints is the way it goes. Like,
Thin Mints, Caramel Delights, and peanut butter patties.
but Thin Mints, like, put them in the freezer.
Oh yeah, that's a popular thing.
Put them in the freezer and eat them that way. That is like the best way to eat Thin Mints.
Well, something else we big goofed on in our last episode, we have a lot of words to eat. The Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I took an L on that one.
Major goof.
Yeah,
Tough loss. Sorry, Detroit fans.
and currently we're in the halftime of the Notre Dame game. I am eating crow right now, and I guess I've just cursed these teams. I had a pretty good run there for
I
a
know.
second.
It's just,
And then
we can't root for any team.
yeah, it's bad.
I promise the Dallas Cowboys segment is still coming. It's going to be long awaited by the time it happens, but it is coming. Don't worry.
It will be a big moment.
Yeah.
But some of the things that we wanted to talk about were just some like big goofs that we have encountered or have done in our professional career, because like we always like to highlight the great things and some things that you kind of forget about, try to push to the side. I think those things need to be highlighted because I feel like those are good things to talk about, and especially if it's me specifically taking the L on that. We're going to talk about a few different things.
L.
Yeah, I've taken a lot of L's. My favorite one this year, though, has to do with Miss Johanna Reynolds.
And we don't worry. We got permission from Johanna to share this story, so don't come after us.
Yeah. So,
Also, a lot of these stories are funny, and they weren't funny at the time, but, you know, things happen. So Johanna is in charge of ordering all the food for any time the band needs food. It just so happened that Michael, who was their percussion director, had to be out of town for an away football game. And I, even though I was 8 months pregnant, was like, I'll go and I'll just like help out and make sure that the halftime show goes okay, so on and so forth. So I happened to be there for this moment, and I'm so glad that I was. We were at this away game.
so the other caveat to this is that our district, like, pretty much allots us a certain amount of funds to purchase food for students whenever we leave town. And so we're allowed X amount of money per student. So we always feed the kids because we're going to be gone for long periods of time. And this was a distance football game. I think we
I
traveled.
think was it our first or second away game?
I think it was our first.
It was the first one, but it was like maybe an hour.
Hour and 45.
It was quite far.
And so unless you live in West Texas, that was like the closest game you're gonna do.
Yeah.
But for us, that's quite a distance. So there was an early release and everything. So we were kind of off our schedule.
And we were planning to feed the kids after halftime, which is a little bit unusual, but that's just how it worked out. Is we were going to eat pizza after halftime.
Yeah. And so Johanna's done a fantastic job of ordering food and lining things up. Just like for the past couple years. And it's taken a lot off my plate, no pun intended. But I asked Johanna, hey, make sure there's enough food for the students. And generally when we do pizzas, we do pretty much half the amount of the students. So that way a student can get up to 4 slices of pizza. We
So
do
one pizza per
for
2
2
kids.
kids.
Yeah.
And it is Little Caesars, hot and ready all the way. And so we go into our game and we're getting ready for halftime. And I'm standing there and something weird has happened. There's been a shift in the air and I see Johanna like walking around frantically and kind of giving me a wide berth.
I feel now like most people think, oh, Johanna forgot to order the pizza. And let's just go right ahead and say, no, Johanna ordered pizza. She did order pizza.
So I'm standing there and Johanna walks up to me. She goes, I made a huge mistake. And I'm like, what do you mean you made a huge mistake?
But also, like, with 2 minutes left on the clock
Yeah.
before half.
And so she goes, I ordered the pizza. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, she goes, I ordered 120 pizzas.
Which is 1 pizza per kid.
So I said, excuse me? What do you mean you ordered 120 pizzas? She goes, I ordered 120 pizzas.
So normally we order 120 meals.
Yes. And
Typically, if we were doing, Chick-fil-A, Subway, whatever, we would order 120 meals.
yeah, so she kind of went on autopilot for that meal.
And typically we would order 60 pizzas.
Yeah.
And Johanna forgot that pizza is a shared item and ordered 120 pizzas.
And so our band booster treasurer did us a solid and like went
Deborah, I know you're listening too. Thank you for listening.
She went and picked up the pizzas and like called Johanna and was like, "Hey, this is a lot of pizzas." And sure enough, it was the correct amount.
It's what Johanna had ordered.
So much that we had to get the gate worker for the school we were visiting, who was like had a small bed on it. It wasn't a gator; it was more like a golf cart
Yeah.
with a back end. Had to make 4 rounds of trips in order to get all the pizza into the stands for the students. And so we're so I felt so bad about this process and this situation because we had so many pizzas that the students were like, we don't want any more. So at this point in time, we were like, what are we doing? And there were like 6th grade band
It's not a
students.
typical occurrence either.
Not at all. I mean, band kids will eat you out of house.
Especially after halftime, like all of that stuff.
Yeah. So here we are like going like, what do we do with all these extra pizzas? We became the Oprah of all band
You
programs.
get a pizza.
You get a pizza.
Mama gets a pizza.
I felt so bad for the concession stand on the visiting side.
I know.
Because like we must have destroyed their sales at that point. There was no recovery. They were 100. There's a picture of this lady with a stack of pizzas taller than
It's like
her,
40 pizzas.
at least.
I like miss like the handing out of the pizzas part. And so I went to make sure that everything was getting on the truck after halftime. So all the front ensemble equipment. And I came back and there are children everywhere, each of them holding their own box of pizza. I don't mean band kids. I mean children underneath the bleachers. And they like each box of pizza.
It was quite an occurrence. And so that was just one of those highlights. I couldn't even be mad for the person who was like having to worry about
You were mad for a minute. But
I started laughing
it's
so
funny now.
hard during the process that I was just like, I can't be angry at this because it's so comical. Like it was egregious.
It was. But, every time now we have pizza, because we've had it a few times since then, we always joke, make sure you order 120.
PSA, there's probably gonna be several cringe moments in this episode.
But that's okay because we listen
Listen,
and
and
we
we
don't
don't
judge.
Um, and so it's just there's gonna be a lot of cringe. I have a few stories that I'm gonna share about things that I've done, and hopefully this will give light to some young teachers or whoever might be listening, going like, "Oh, I got to make sure I never do."
Yeah, we're far from perfect.
Yeah, and once again, we're not experts at any of this. Which brings me to like my own personal story.
Let's
Okay, I got a few personal stories. One
give
from
us one and then I'll give
Okay.
you one.
One that I can tell you for sure is to make sure you read all all your modifications. Read all the modifications, make sure that you're going through that process, especially if you're like a new teacher to like the profession, or you're new to a school district. If you happen to be like,
We're talking about accommodations like 504 IEP. Make sure you read all of them.
read them, know exactly what's happening. Um, And even at that, make sure you communicate with like your coworkers who might know something that you don't.
Or with your student teachers.
Yes, and this is where I pretty much put my foot in my mouth pretty good.
This is a bad one.
Yeah, I was student teaching at a local high school here in Waco, and we had a student who came in consistently, and she wasn't part of the band program, but she was really interested in being part of it. She was talking about it. She talked to the band directors all the time. She came in during her lunch, and she was, but I had a hard time understanding her sometimes because she would get so excited and start talking so fast that I just didn't understand. So I pretty much told her one day, "Hey, can you like slow down and enunciate a little bit better for me, because like I'm not understanding half the things you're saying." And she goes like, "Whatever," and she like leaves, and then she comes back the next day or later that lunch period, and she's talking again. And at that point in time, she flips her hair, and when she flips her hair, I notice that she has hearing aids in.
Hmm.
And I felt like the smallest person on the planet at that.
Could have.
Yeah, I wanted to crawl underneath a rock.
Yeah.
And, I realized it, and I automatically felt so bad because I just didn't know. And it's not the fact that I didn't wanna know, it's just I didn't. She always wore her hair down. I had no clue. I knew there was some speech, I guess some speech something or whatever, but there were moments of clarity whenever she talked and other moments where it wasn't. And then she left for her next period, and I turned around to the band directors and I go, "Why in the world did no one tell me that?" And she goes, everyone was like, "We thought you knew. We thought you were just being a jerk." I was like, why would I say that to someone?
Yeah, so don't assume that people know.
Yeah, and so that's my big foot in the mouth situation when it came to being a young teacher. And so now I carefully go over my 504s and my IEPs, any type of
Which
modification.
everyone should regardless.
Yes. Yes, but that was horrific and scarring.
Well, especially when you're a student teacher, you're not always informed of that.
You need to know your students as much as possible, or directors, you need to let people know, and your staff, that, hey, this is a possibility.
Mhm.
This is a situation you might come across. So like that's my definite foot in the
Basically, it comes to know your kids,
Yes.
take care of them.
Yes.
Okay, I have one.
You have one?
This one was not funny at the time, and it's not even that funny now, but I got a speeding ticket in a school vehicle. And no, there were no kids in the vehicle, just adults. But I didn't realize the speed limit, and I got pulled over, and I got a speeding ticket. And
How
it was,
how'd that over?
well, I called the transportation lady, and I was freaking out, and I was like, I just got a speeding ticket driving a school car. And she was like, okay. I was like, okay, well, I have this ticket. And she was like, it's fine. If you're a bus driver, it would be a problem, but you're just adults in a school vehicle. So, but don't do that.
Don't speed.
Don't speed.
Don't speed.
Drive safe.
Yes. I mean, especially with the weather right now, like, don't speed. Um, as an assistant director, your mistakes are so much smaller than when it comes to being a head director.
Sometimes it depends on what you do.
Well,
It depends on the mistake.
depends on the mistake, yeah. I just know that, like, when I was an assistant director, like, one of my flubs, we didn't have a facility to perform concerts, so we rented a local facility, and we did all those types of concerts, and we would have to drive there, and we would have to take equipment and a trailer and things like that, and I thought I was about to lose my job. I forgot because if you are an assistant, you will drive a trailer at some point in time in a small school, not a box truck, a truck with a trailer attached to it.
Mm.
And those things just work differently than other vehicles. And if you're underneath time restraints, sometimes you forget something. And for me, I lifted up the back gate to this trailer and I forgot to latch it completely. And so I'm going down a highway, and apparently, the gate of this trailer came down.
So did you feel the gate come down?
I did not.
What did you hear it dragging?
No, no, no. The only reason I knew the gate was down is because a vehicle next to us, or next to me, pulled up right next to me and started honking at me, like, aggressively.
So just to recap, this trailer has an entire trailer full of band instruments for a concert.
I made sure to check every single instrument that was on that trailer, and I drove back around to make sure no instruments went flying.
You got very lucky because nothing was lost or damaged.
Yes. And so those are the reasons why we go through, like, checklists beforehand.
Such as lock the trailer.
Lock the trailer.
We listen and we don't judge.
But those are definitely one of those I went, "Oh my goodness, I don't wanna sit down." I mean, I stood outside that office for a hot second, just walking back and forth and, like, mustering up the courage to have that discussion with my boss, and that was just, like, not a fun time.
What did Bob say?
He goes, "Well, did any of the instruments get lost?" I go, "No, everything's there. They were all at the concert." He goes, "Okay."
Well, you're lucky.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I've had some really, really great bosses, and where they've shown me some grace along the way.
Well, so far we've taken away from this. I've become a better driver. You remember to lock trailers. And Johanna double checks the food order.
Yes, yes, very much so.
I have some listener submitted goofs. First one, Jesus. He, along with the vehicle theme, he was driving like the district's new F-250 truck, and he swiped a box truck with it and dented it. So I've heard multiple stories of directors hitting something, and like you said, everyone in a small school pretty much has to drive a trailer at some point, and not all of us are like have the God-given skill for that.
Yeah. Do you remember that one time we were driving down the state, HSB also, or T,
Oh yeah,
and I hit that small bear?
that wasn't necessarily a mistake, but that was in a school vehicle, and I just happened to be with you, and we were taking Allstater down, and we were on the loop outside of Austin, and it was nighttime, and this massive raccoon
Yeah, it
was in
like
the
we were
middle of the
near
road.
we were near a dump or something, and it just
Dang, it was
like
that's the biggest raccoon I've ever seen.
it was hefty. It
I'm
was,
wearing a sweatshirt right now that is a raccoon. How appropriate. It says, "To me, you are trash." And Jose got it for me for
she's been really, really drawn to,
I just like raccoons.
yeah, raccoons and possums. But yeah,
That dented the vehicle.
yeah,
too.
I had
That
to,
was
we pulled over because it was a massive raccoon.
the bumper was messed up.
Yeah, the bumper was messed up, and then
The
the undercover
Yeah.
was kind of torn down a little bit, and I had to rip it off and put it in the back to take back to school.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was like, I was like, where did that come from? It was just, it was a huge animal.
I have another one that was listener submitted. So Allison, formerly Holden. Allison, I don't know how to say your new last name. Is it Gran or is it
I
Grant?
think it's Graham.
Gran?
Graham?
No, it's an N.
It's
not,
N?
There's not an N.
Is that an M?
Allison, write in and tell us or send us a voice memo of how to say your new married last name. Also, congratulations.
Also, Allison was my drum major at one point in time. And always think about the things before you're gonna say, because she got interviewed for like a news, like school of the week spirit thing, and she was drum major at that point in time. And they asked her like, "What do you play?" And she was drum major. She goes, "Well, I play my arms." And it was just like, "Oh, this is gonna be broadcasted."
Allison plays the flute. And then she subsequently went to Baylor and graduated from Baylor and is now an elementary music teacher, and we're very proud of her. But Allison, when she was student teaching, said that she taught a euphonium class, and her assignment was, I guess, to teach the D flat major scale. Allison taught the D flat scale with G naturals.
Beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's a Lydian mode.
Take your classes seriously in college.
That was another mistake
Yeah, that
one of us made.
Yeah, I will fully admit, and I will tell anybody this.
We're the opposite in this too.
Yes, Alexa is much more intelligent than I am.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, when it comes specifically to educational things, like where you or have to be an academic.
I don't even think it's intelligence. I'm just motivated by deadlines and grades.
Yeah,
And you're not necessarily. You're motivated by deadlines
deadlines. I'm also
and
like,
checklists.
yeah, checklists.
Not motivated by something unless you feel like it actually applies to you.
Yes,
Like you don't do it just for because someone says to, which is fine because there's a lot of things that are pointless that you have to do in college. So I totally get that.
it's not all pointless, but like be a little bit more aware of what you have to do in college.
So just so you know, when you apply for a job, also, sometimes people take the approach of, well, if I'm just like doing all of the assignments, that I don't have enough time to practice. I don't know if you ever felt like that, but I definitely went to school with people who just did the bare minimum to pass their classes so that they could spend their time practicing, which that's one way to do it. But be aware, especially if you intend to go into education, that when you apply for a job, your transcript says what grades you made in what class. Sometimes people fail their lessons, and that
Yeah.
kind of tells you
Or,
something. Or they fail their
string methods class by not showing up.
yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't
me
you either.
It wasn't me either.
Somebody who listens to this podcast, though, that applies to.
Yeah. But I was a horrible music education student. I'm pretty sure several of my college professors are surprised by how far I've come, if not how decently I've done at my job.
Well, that's another thing too. Is just because you're a bad student doesn't mean you're a bad educator.
Yeah, I've that was one thing I struggled.
There are plenty of terrible students in any profession that are excellent at what they do.
Yeah, I just remember sitting down in a conducting lesson and just like, I could conduct it. I knew everything, but don't ask me to sing the pitch correctly on this one part just because I couldn't.
That does form impressions. I mean, I think that you've like overcome that now, but for a while, I think some of those people had impressions of you that maybe weren't the best just because that's how they knew you in college.
Yeah. And part of that's just the fact that I wanted to be a band director. So nothing else mattered other than being a band director. And I just didn't see the full value in everything that I needed.
Such as taking 2 semesters of Spanish or 3 semesters,
Something like that.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. So Baylor's really stringent on their
foreign
language stuff. And that was really like,
It's a tough class too.
yeah, and you just kind of have to take it. And there's some other
Again,
classes.
you don't spend time on things that you feel like aren't relevant to what you're doing. And of course, knowing the Spanish language is relevant, but anyone that's taken a foreign language class can tell you that that's not like some of the information that you learn in there is not necessarily applicable to the skills that you would need.
Hmm. Yeah, that was really difficult for me, but I think I finally righted several of those ships. It's the same thing like with the impressions that you make with people.
Well, I would say I was so far the opposite of that, though, is that sometimes I sacrificed playing opportunities just to get better grades, which is also negative.
Yeah, but that also comes back to the relationships you build in college and with people, because I know like for me personally, I might have like wronged some people at college that now like we're on the same playing field, and it'd be nice to reconnect with them and kind of show them how like, hey, I've actually grown up quite a bit since then.
Change, like, regardless of what time period of life that you're in, people change, people grow. Sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's positive, but everyone is always changing. And honestly, if you're always looking to better yourself, you should be changing in some way.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people have a hard time with, and I think that
Well, everyone has a hard time with change. No one likes change.
yeah, and I think that's where people like get kind of goofed up a little bit is just the fact that they get their feelings hurt by any type of comment that's made to them when it's about a growing process and through our sins. And that's another mistake people often do. It's like realize, yes, it is your product and this is what you're putting yourself into, but ultimately it's about the students and what they're doing and what kind of music they're putting out and their development. And I think that's sometimes that we forget about that as band directors.
Yeah. I have one that I've done that is not like haha, but I have a quote that I'm going to read. True freedom means giving others permission to misunderstand you. I feel like I've wasted a lot of time putting a lot of energy and effort to having people like me.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily feel like that was the best use of my time. I put my efforts in the wrong places where I should have just been spending time bettering myself as a teacher instead of doing it to get other people to respect me or just to please them. And now I'm not here to please anyone.
And that comes back to that quote that I said last time was that, I try to like everyone and I want everyone to like me.
Not everyone is
Yeah.
going to like
And we talked about that.
no matter who you are, no matter what you do.
Yeah, and it's just what's that thing we talk about that the type I am and the type you are.
Oh, the Enneagram. I'm a 2, Jose's a 3.
I've never taken the test, so
He's a 3.
I'm just
Just go with it.
I'm just flying blind on this.
Yeah. But I feel like I've spent too much energy into that. And to be quite vulnerable, I'm just moving past that. I don't care about doing that in the profession anymore, except for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, I try to please the staff. I try to
Oh,
please.
yeah, and I just mean that, and I don't mean that as like I'm not trying to please like our admin or what. Of course, I want to please them, but I just mean in the greater context of like the profession, like I haven't spent enough time shooting my shot to like be asked to judge places or be asked to clinic. And a lot of that comes from you just have to like do your time and kind of get some experience under your belt.
Mhm.
But I spent 0 time doing that until now. And so I just feel like I need to work on that a little bit more
Yeah, I mean,
and just kind of like put myself out there and not worry about what people think about me.
yeah, that's the way I've kind of felt about like putting stuff out into like the OPS process, which in
And I've never done that.
yeah,
And I
the small schools have a thing called the Outstanding Performance Series. And that is based around like just a recording that you submit, and it goes head to head with other recordings, and there's multi levels. And same thing, it's like the same thing with like what they call the honor band process, where you kind of do the same thing. So it's just a little bit different, and like me just being scared of like what other people are gonna think.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I told the kids, I go, it's a detriment to their exposure and to their growth, for me not to do those things because ultimately it's a representation of what they're capable of, not just what I'm capable of, and that's a mistake I've made, and just not acknowledging their success through like performance.
Well, that's ultimately what it's about.
Yeah, and so that's something that I've goofed on.
Well, all that to say,
Yeah, but as I was saying earlier, generally when you are in a higher position, you make bigger goofs. Or when you do make a goof, you make bigger goofs. And it is very, very much even more present in the small school because if you make a mistake or if you're unwilling to acknowledge that mistake, it affects more people. Um, or there's just kind of a bigger impact, and so it falls on you. Like big time, I have some of the best band parents possible, and I have some of the best staff. So my big goof as a head director actually happened at our Disney trip.
oh,
Oh yes, I made a huge, huge mistake But part of the thing with trips that for our district is that there has to be, or anywhere, there has to be an educational basis to it. And so we perform at a local high school in Florida. So we went to Disney for this trip, and it was a great trip. The kids had a great time. Everything ran smoothly. We didn't forget any kids. That's often a big mistake. Check your roll, please.
I've never forgotten.
So it's everything's going smoothly. It is the last day of our trip, and we are heading to Universal Studios. But before we do that, we have to go and perform at a local high school there in Florida. And so we go and we do this performance. And so therefore, I'm carrying all my stuff. I'm in charge of the tickets, all that kind of stuff. The tickets for Universal Studios is going to be at will call. I have all my stuff. I'm getting ready to conduct this thing and have a clinic. And I put my backpack down and, I'm just gathering all my materials. And so therefore, we start a rehearsal. We start the clinic. We do the recording. We load everything back. And it's like, go, 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 go.
So those are always frantic situations.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget something, do something wrong.
Yes. And so like we finally get everything situated and we get everyone back on the bus. We do the head count. We double check the head count. We're on 2 charters and we start heading to the theme park. And so we park and I'm making announcements on the speaker. And as soon as I finish my announcements, I put the speaker down. And I reach for my back. Mind you, my backpack has everything that I need to exist.
Your wallet,
Wallets, my charger,
driver's license.
everything. Everything is in there. And so I reached down for my backpack.
Was your computer in there?
I think it was. And it is no longer with me. And
That is a terrible feeling.
I go into the ultimate panic mode. Because this is about to affect my students to a large degree.
Everybody there.
Yes. Because for me to get the tickets at will call, I need a photo ID.
Uh-huh.
And so I start running through my mind every single last way I can fix this. Luckily, I was able to talk to someone and figure it out to where they took my photo from the school website as proof of who I was and the organization I was
That was
attached to.
very kind of them.
Yes. I mean, I called our travel agent. I called everyone I could to try and find a way to remedy.
So where was your backpack?
I had put it down on the percussion part in the band hall that we had performed in and recorded in. And I just, in the rush, because it wasn't near me, I left it there.
How did you get it back?
So I had to swallow my pride and talk to some band parents. And luckily, we had a band parent who flew in to Florida and had rented a vehicle. And mind you, this is a Saturday. So this school is not open.
No.
It is not open. It is completely closed. It is almost deserted. And so I asked this parent to take me back. I'm calling the school. I'm calling the rep. I'm calling all these people. I finally get in contact with like a host and they said, "Oh, I can't be there until like 4 hours from now."
Hmm.
Well, that's just not going to work. And luckily, this school is also giving an SAT test the same day.
Perfect.
And so I'm hanging out because there's cars around and a door flies open and students' cars start coming out.
Safety issue.
Yeah. And so I dart in as fast as I can. And I start walking through the courtyard and I find a coach who was a test administrator. And I explained my situation to them. They're like, "Ooh, man, you in a lot of trouble." I go, "I'm trying not to be." I'm going to say an extra prayer for you tonight, my friend. And he does me a solid and he lets me into the band hall.
What a guy.
And I'm able to get my backpack with all my materials because we were leaving on charter buses straight from the park all the way back home. And so that was a real moment of panic and worry for me because 1, how am I gonna get all my stuff? 2, how am I gonna have all the things I need for the remainder of the trip for the students?
Yeah.
And so it was one of those kind of things that you just gotta hold on, pray, and you have to think outside the box as much as possible.
That story is not related to what I just thought of, but I just thought of a mistake that was made. I did not make this mistake. But when I was in the Baylor Symphony Orchestra, we performed.
I know exactly where you're going.
We I think this was my last like semester at Baylor, but we performed at a community college that was like 45 minutes away. And as percussionists,
You
the short end of the stick sometimes. Sorry, percussionists.
that and the tuba players.
Yeah, we had to load everything before we left. And we loaded everything and like the percussion section was like vibing and we were so excited because we were the first people on the bus. And so we were sitting in like the first maybe 6 to 8 rows on this charter bus. So we play at this community college. So we play Symphony Fantastique and then we have to load our equipment again at the end. So we are outside loading this box truck, and there's this cello player who is just a nice guy and also helping us. And so I think what happened is he went to get his cello and he came back and he said, "No one, the buses are gone." And we said, "What do you mean the buses are gone?" And he said they left. And we had been loading the box truck, and the symphony director, Mr. Hyde, who has since retired. We love Mr. Hyde. He had left that performance to go to the airport immediately. So the grad students on the buses were in charge of checking roll. And I guess that didn't happen. And I guess the grad student on our bus, or no one on the bus, realized that the first, 6 to 8 rows of the charter bus were empty and they previously were filled by people. And they left us there because we were loading the truck. And so we called the people, like whoever was on the bus, and we said, "Hey, you left the entire percussion section outside at this college and it is now dark and late." And they said, "Well, we're already halfway home." So they had to turn around and come get us, and we had to stand. The building is closed. We had to stand in the dark and wait for them to come back and get us.
So you were my keys.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got left. The entire percussion section.
Check
got
your
left.
roll.
Make sure you have everyone.
Yeah, shouldn't check your roll. What are some other common mistakes you think teachers make?
One that I've definitely made is over programming. I think everyone does that at some point.
Yeah.
Just like picking stuff that's too much. Or maybe it's not necessarily too much, but you don't have enough time to get it where it needs to be.
And there's a mistake I made this weekend. So this past weekend was our all region band clinic and concert, and we had a fantastic time. It was good times. But like a mistake I made was assuming somebody's gender.
Yikes.
Yeah. Well, there was a unisex name, and they're wearing a hoodie and short hair. And I said, "Yes, sir." And it was not a sir.
Yeah.
And I felt bad and I apologized, but like that was a mistake that I made.
I say kids' names incorrectly sometimes, not intentionally, obviously, but brain jumble, and I just called them the wrong name by accident.
Yeah. When I took over at was it Wortham? Either Wortham or Robinson. I was giving a speech to the kids and I accidentally referred to that school by the wrong mascot. Like giving them like, "Hey, let's go get them, we need the certain pride." And I was like, "Oh, that's not the right mascot." And you heard all the kids and went, "Ooh," like that was just not the right decision.
Big goof.
Yeah. Also other things, when you talk to students, make sure all your clothing is adjusted the correct way. We had a student teacher at one point in time give a small speech with his fly down.
How did that land?
It didn't. I was just like, afterwards, I was like, "Hey man, your fly's down." I also did that to a very prolific band director at tinge.
That is
I'm not gonna mention.
very kind of.
I'm one of those kind of people that like if you have a booger.
I saw Jose going to approach this person, and I recognized who that
Oh yeah, this person's very prominent in our profession.
goes up to seemingly shake his hand.
I don't know.
Cold.
Yeah, I don't know this man. He doesn't know me.
I guess at TMA, live
Yeah,
your life.
yeah.
But
I went up to him and like it was this.
that you were shaking his
Yeah,
hand too.
well, it was this weird
He
exchange.
was with his wife.
Yes, who's also a prominent band director. And I try to bring him in close because I don't want to make a big deal about it. And I go to shake it, like tell him, and he tries shaking my hand, and then it becomes this awkward like hug situation. Yeah, like it was just
It's very nice of him that he was going to give this, this
random
stranger
large Hispanic man a hug, but it was just like very awkward. And I was just like, hey, no, I don't like.
just trying to whisper in
Yeah,
his ear.
I'd be like, hey, man, your fly's down. And he goes, oh, and he turns around and, he zips up his fly, and his wife loses it. Like she is laughing at him about this process.
I would have been laughing too.
I mean, but it was just like it was one of the most awkward interactions. And he is one of the best band
Oh, yeah.
in the state.
He's a legend.
Yes.
That was a fun time.
Yeah,
I just remember in that moment thinking,
What-
what is
he doing?
doing? And Jose is bold, and I am not bold, but I just remember thinking, weird. This is not what I want to see happening right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm like I said, if I'm the person that I'm going to tell you if you have something in your teeth, if you have a booger or
What I appreciate about you though is because, and like I said, I'm in my shoot my shot era, so maybe I should be more aggressive, perhaps. But I appreciate that about you, and that's honestly like something that's like why we're together, pretty much, is because we're the opposite.
early in our marriage and our relationship, I would do things on purpose. And I still do it. Like when we go to HEB, which I am an HEB person.
It's a pro.
You cannot send me to HEB.
The trope of like sending a woman to Target with the Starbucks, and it's just like the best experience of their life. That's you at HEB.
Yes, I cannot help myself. I'm like, ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. And I just buy
again,
everything.
you don't go into HEB knowing what you want. HEB tells you.
Yes, very much so. So like we would be checking out, and if somebody's gonna ask me a question, I want to know if they're engaged with me. And so a cashier would be like, "Are you saying
Why people hate you?
are you having a good day today?" I go, or like, "How's your day today?" And I would always say like awful, terrible.
The 100% of the time they ignore it or they don't hear you.
Yeah, they just don't acknowledge the fact that I said it. And the few times they acknowledge, they're kind of taken back, and then that's when I engage with them. And I'm just like, I'm just kidding. I'm having a great day. How are you?
They're kind of in their,
Yeah, they're in their zone.
their zone.
Yeah, you got to make sure you type in. I am so impressed by those people with the numbers for all the fruit and vegetables.
I know.
Like they
We
just
never worked at a grocery store, so
Yeah, I worked on a farm, but I didn't. I'm like that corn.
I worked at Starbucks, but I didn't learn that skill there.
Yeah, what's your favorite order from Starbucks?
Right now, I've been getting, this is like really like expensive, and I need to stop getting it. But I've been getting a cold brew and adding cream, and then getting some white mocha in it and topping it with the strawberry cold foam. So not only is it expensive, it is incredibly unhealthy.
Yeah, that just kind of checks.
It's delicious.
Yeah,
and it's it's a treat. But I should step away.
I've kind of veered off from my usual. I used to get just a cold brew, nitro cold brew with 3 stevia.
I know we've fallen off.
Fallen off that, and now it's I've been doing the chocolate peppermint cold foam with 2 pumps of brown sugar.
That is an interesting combo. I don't know how you came up with that.
It sounded good. I like brown sugar.
I like brown sugar too, but I wouldn't put it with the peppermint mocha.
That was Waffles, if you heard that.
We have a dog named Waffles. We talked about him in the last episode, but I edited it out. But we have a 100-pound Labradoodle named Waffles, and he's involved with the podcast.
So that's our Starbucks orders.
Well, I had a serious something I said, and then you switched gears. But I talked about overprogramming. Have you ever done that?
100%. I've done that with a sub non-varsity before.
Oh yeah, I forgot that you used to teach a sub non-varsity.
Yeah, which is a bold decision.
I like teaching a sub non-varsity, but I will, and especially at the junior high level, you can get as many honors and awards as you want for teaching, whatever, making honor band or winning state marching contest, just being a high achieving band. The greatest feeling of accomplishment is when you start seeing progress with a sub non-varsity junior high band. That there is like the meat and potatoes.
Yeah. Especially if you have enough for like a 4A school where it's like 25, 30 kids.
That feels good.
Yeah.
That really does feel good.
That's a W.
But over programming, sub non-varsity
Yeah.
band.
And I think also that comes with like being over ambitious. Um, you have to take into account like the talent level, if not the skills that you've taught your students versus knowing what they can't handle. Um,
Well, you have to balance it between what you need to teach them
mm,
and what they can't yet accomplish and what they won't be able to accomplish in your time frame.
yeah. Like I did Storm Mountain Jubilee one year, and
I don't even remember what that one sounds.
oh yeah, there's a clapping section. Don't ever do anything with a clapping section.
Was this for UIL?
Yes, this for
Okay.
UIL, and the clapping section just like hangs.
You know, as a young teacher, something that I overlooked when picking programming, and maybe this is just because I'm not a wind player, but I used to neglect the range.
Hmm.
I would pick like an appropriate grade piece, but I wouldn't take into account the range of the kids that I have and how much time we had to achieve what the piece was asking for.
Yeah, and that's also dangerous with the pieces that you like are drawn to,
Yeah.
and the pieces that you like to listen to. And that's a huge problem. I know I'm guilty of that. There's certain types of music I really like, and we've talked about that when it comes to like marches. Like I do not generally play traditional marches, even though like they're valuable and things like that. I don't like them personally. But so therefore, whenever I don't like them, there's a gap in their knowledge base, which is a problem.
Have you ever underprogrammed? I feel like it's harder to underprogram than it is to overprogram.
Yes.
It's possible for sure.
Yeah. I think I have, but that's been like very rare times that could have happened.
Hmm.
Maybe when I was over at Wortham, that could have been a thing.
You had a small band. How many people were in your band?
Uh,
High school band,
21,
9 through 12?
9 to 12, 21 students. And so that experience was a little bit different because I was a new head director, first time head director, and I took the advice.
First time head director at a school where you were the only director.
Yes, and that school hadn't made a sweepstakes since 1996. And so some of the cautionary tales I heard, and I leaned on my mentor, David Bettito, a whole lot during that process. But just trying not to do too much too early, like set some standards and expectations, but not overdoing it. Like that was one of the things that happened over when I came over to Gatesville. Gatesville apparently had a 3-day band schedule during summer band. And that was like a lot for me. And that was something I was not used to. And that worked for them at that point in time and that staff. That was just something I wasn't passionate about.
Yeah.
And so after I kept that schedule for a full year or that 1 year, and then afterwards I changed it just because like I couldn't survive that again.
You kind of mentioned this a second ago, but I think this is another thing that another mistake that people make is by not being coachable and by not receiving mentorship. And I think some people go into certain situations where they have the opportunity to have an outstanding mentor with them on their staff. And I think there's other times that people walk into situations where either they're the only person there or they don't have any, and this is obviously intended for young teachers, but even now I feel like sometimes I need mentorship. And I honestly lean on you for a lot of that. But if you are in a situation where you don't feel that you have that, you should probably find it from someone.
Yeah. Like I reach out to several people consistently. Reed Atkinson is somebody I reach out to. Zach Santos is another person I talk to pretty consistently. Him and I have started becoming, I feel like friends if he's listening to the podcast. He might text me and go like, we're not
Hey,
friends.
I know. I was like, you're taking it a little too far.
But like one of my biggest mentors was Steve
Yeah.
Williamson over at Robinson. But Steve and I are cut from the same cloth, and we've made the same mistakes, and he's helped me come off the edge, and like he's kept it real with me, and just
Just a couple of hotheads.
a couple of hotheads. He's been one of those kind of people that like has coached me up throughout my career. Same thing with Bob Vetter, who honestly, um, kept me from something else that is, and he talks to me about this pretty consistently about having, g- grass is greener syndrome.
Yes.
He's told me, Jose, don't leave Gatesville, period. He tells me that every single year. Just because we're fortunate enough to have
Have
great
a good
support.
setup. I have a theory about this. So that is again another mistake that people make, grass is greener syndrome. Because you look at other programs, and this comes again to comparing yourself and just like being okay with misunderstanding or people misunderstanding you, is not every situation is set up the same. And people fall into the trap of comparison, and they look at a different school. Maybe it's in the same classification and maybe it's not. But they say, well, they have this and I don't. They have these type of kids and I don't. They have this equipment and I don't. They have this many staff members and I don't. Whatever the reason may be. But you can't fully understand a place until you get there. All that to say, my theory is that, and I'm just making up these numbers, but I feel like 85 probably percent of band programs have non-ideal setups
Mhm. I mean, we don't
in
have it.
some sort of way.
Yeah, we don't have a junior high band.
We don't have facilities, or, you can come up with any number of things that are disadvantaging your program. But a lot of us, it's very easy to stay connected, especially in the age of social media and so on and so forth. And we go to Team EA and we see these people, and people really, and not always, but a lot of people, it depends on who you talk to. A lot of people hype up what is going well for them, which again, I don't talk about those things enough typically. But a lot of people share what is going well, and they don't talk about their disadvantages. And so my theory is that 85% of band programs have non-ideal setups, but we are kind of looking to the 15%, and people leave places, go somewhere else, and they expect it to be better in some way, and that's not probably going to be the case.
Yeah.
Or there's going to be a different set of disadvantages.
Yeah, and so that was something that was kind of interesting for me, and like you made this impact on me pretty early on in my career because Alexa and I were dating when I was over at Wortham,
Mhm.
and I had the opportunity to interview for a job back near my hometown that had a head director position open. And at the same time, I was offered a position at Robinson, and there was a huge difference in salary, like $20,000 difference in salary.
And as a young teacher, that's life-changing.
Yes, it was huge because at my first job, I was making, I think, 32,000, and that's not the case anymore, thank goodness.
Yeah, because we have 3 children.
But going from that versus the salary I was being offered at Robinson at the time, there were several decisions that I was going to have to make. And I sat down and I compared, and you helped me through that process because you also didn't want me to leave the Central Tech.
Well, I was locked into going to Baylor.
Yeah.
That's really what it was, is Jose's older than I am, obviously. But he was already teaching and I was transferring, and I pretty much had already committed to Baylor.
And so I had to also take into consideration like what I was going to do with my career. Either continue being a head band director and go to a school and do that, or go be a part of a staff and learn and hopefully be a part of something great. And it turned out to be the best decision I
All
made.
this to say, it's not always about the money.
Yep.
It can't always be about the money, because if you are looking, and I guess it just depends on your personal situation too, because maybe that's what you need at that point in time. But if you're able to, make the salary work, you really need to take into account the other things happening with the program, because your salary is not necessarily the biggest indicator of your success.
Yep. And so making that decision to go to Robinson changed the complete trajectory of my career. I mean, and I was so privileged to be a part of that. Like it was my first time making state marching band with that group, and I had never made it as a student or beforehand. And that taught me like the things I needed to do to help students to get to that point and seeing that process. And at that contest, there was a huge goof on the announcer's part because back then they used to announce results by
Oh, yeah.
alphabetical order, and they skipped Robinson, and so therefore there was a moment of like, "Oh my goodness, we didn't make it."
Now, did they announce the school name and then the placement?
No, they didn't even do placements. They just announced like who's advancing.
Oh, who's
And so
advancing?
like you would go down.
So they went past R.
Yeah, they went
Mhm.
past R and we're gonna go down to the S's, and the announcer came over the speaker and said, "I don't know my alphabet," and the Robinson and like I mean, but the look of
That's a good, yeah.
terror and fear on students' faces. I mean, that was like a huge error.
Yeah, and that kinda makes it, I mean, that makes the feeling a little bit better, you know?
Yeah, well, it's just kind of committed it to memory just a little bit better. But that was a huge moment as well. And then when Bob Vetter winning 3A state honor band,
Mhm.
uh,
That
he-
was an good experience.
yeah, I mean, I can't even think about where I would be if it wasn't for those types of experiences. And
I said this last time too, is that you don't always appreciate the experiences. And I was in college at the time that you were doing all of that, and I was kinda like, I guess I was finishing up a little bit, but I didn't appreciate that as much at the time as I should have. And I did appreciate it, but I should have appreciated it more.
and like one of the other things that I've kind of done is that I've asked other people to view our program and the things that we're doing in rehearsals and marching band and in concert season and tell me what I need to do to improve.
Which comes back to, you have to be coachable and you have to be, I mean, I'm not saying you have to have a mentor, but you have to be willing to accept criticism. And lots of people sit down with their UIL sheets, for example, and they just talk about what the judges found wrong and how they disagree with that. And if that is your mentality, you are never going to grow as much as you could be.
So what are some other mistakes that you've seen from like just things that you might have thought about through the process and have witnessed?
Oh, some people are very bad at communicating. Just like in any facet of the profession, um, they're just bad at communicating, and then they ghost you, and then it's hard to, do anything after that. Some people are bad at communicating with their students. Some people are bad at communicating with parents. Some people are bad at communicating with other band directors. For example, if because I've been in the position of hiring judges before for multiple different things, but if I email you and try to give you a judging opportunity and you never email me back, I assume that you're doing that to other people as well, and you're probably losing, opportunities just based off of your communication skills.
Yep. And that's part of the reason why I'm so anxious about my emails.
You're very uptight
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. I've if I get a like angry parent email in
Oh,
any
yeah.
type of fashion,
I think anyone kind of
yeah,
feels that way, but you're like that with everything.
yes, it's because like I have been programmed. When it comes to like administrators and the people above me, their biggest thing is like, do not be late with your paperwork.
Well, yeah.
And so I have a rule that if I need anything done, I'm shooting for 3 to 4 weeks before I actually need that material. And so that's one of the biggest things from, like,
This
paperwork.
this goes hand in hand with that. Some districts and band directors, this isn't necessarily your fault. Some districts are terrible about paying people on time.
Yeah. I'm a check in hand kind of guy.
But you have also been on the other side, and I have too, where I've had to wait months for a check. And that shouldn't be happening. If you're providing a service, you should be paid
Yeah, you wanna be
appropriately for that service.
and compensated with plenty of time.
But seriously, months, waited months for checks. And back
For a
to
check.
communication, there have been businesses that don't send invoices on time, and then they don't get paid on time because they didn't communicate appropriately.
Yeah. I mean, I've been at faults when it comes to some
Well,
communication things.
again, we've made all of these mistakes.
Yes.
This is not us just like, you guys are doing a bad job. We're perfect. We understand that we have made these mistakes, but that is something that happens a lot.
Yes.
And again, especially as far as paying and that kind of thing, that's not always in the band director's control. But that sure is makes it hard to get people to retain people.
Yeah. But also, like, for, like, your admin, you have to know what their icks are.
Oh yeah.
Like, my admin is very much like, do your paperwork, turn it on time, it makes the thing I mean, you're making somebody's job harder, and that's, like, the last thing you wanna do.
Oh yeah.
Our accounts payable person is a wonderful human being. Our CFO is brand new this year, and so, like, she's figuring things out, and she's great, she's fantastic, she's a former band
We
parent,
have really good admin.
like, they are great, and just having some type of understanding, not drawing a complete line in the sand, and just, understanding their expectations of you, and you, having them understand where you're at and how to best serve the district. Like, whenever I leave the superintendent's office or a principal's office or something like that, my last thing to them is like, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Because, like, we are in servant roles.
This is another mistake that people make is not knowing how to work with or how to approach their admin.
Well, it's the same thing with student leadership.
Yeah.
Like, student leadership, and we try training students as fast as we
Which
can
all
early.
comes back to
Communication.
communication.
We have a rule for our students that, like, if you're gonna go to or if you wanna go to tutorials, like, you need to you need to communicate that with plenty of time.
24 hours.
24 hours, if not the night before, the day before. So that way we can change things the way we need to change them. Just because I make rehearsal plans the day before, and if I'm missing a soloist,
That changes your
that changes my plan. And so having those types of communications is super important. You know, everyone has a schedule, everyone has a timeline, and what do you want to do to affect that? Because I know that I don't want to change things, especially like when a student might have a trip or something scheduled, and then you throw a contest on, or like a pre-UIL contest.
yeah.
Like, those things haven't been communicated, and we all have things come up. I don't get upset with my students when there's a death in the family.
Well,
Like, that's out of their control.
there's kid problems and there's adult
No
problems.
problems. That's one of those types of things. Um, Forgetting to number your score.
I've seen people forget to bring their scores to UIL. What
Or
happens if that happens? You get a
you
get a reprimand? Yeah.
reprimand, or you get DNA'd. I mean,
Well, if you forget your scores, I assume you're DNA'd.
yeah.
But and which is it's terrible for the kids.
Yeah.
I've never seen that happen, but I've seen people forget their scores and quickly have to come up with a plan of how to remedy that situation.
Yeah.
But
Well,
people forget to number their scores fairly frequently.
yeah, and, like, there are certain things that are out of people's control, but knowing the process in order to remedy it, like, we performed a piece last year that I had ordered back in November.
Order your scores at
Back in
time.
November, and we have contests in March, and it just never shows up.
Scary.
And so I had to go through and get special permission to make photocopies, but, like, that kinda stuff, and it's just like, I had to buy an e-print of a score in order to make that happen,
Yeah.
because it was just, like, absolutely ridiculous.
So do you buy the e-print and then attach the receipt?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, because sometimes the publisher, like, doesn't get back to you.
This is something I'm very guilty of and I've seen people do. I sometimes am overly ambitious. I take on too much. And that can be at the detriment of myself. It can be at the detriment of the kids, depending on what it is.
Do you so overambitious, like starting a podcast,
Starting a podcast, that's one. I don't
reading
and
your website?
because I don't know how to podcast, but I just had an idea and I went with it. Again, in my shoot my shot era, I'm shooting my shot. Also, if you need a clinician or a judge, I am on the concert band provisional list. So, hire me, call me. That's me shooting my shot. But I decided over the summer, I was like, I'm going to redesign our band website. I don't know anything about that. But that's one toxic trait about me is I will just take something and assume that I can do it, and I cannot. And eventually I'll figure it out, but that's with a lot of help from people and the internet, Google, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Being overly ambitious.
Being overambitious.
This is one that was submitted from a listener, Michael. Michael, I think she said she's taught at 5 schools in 4 different districts, and she said that her biggest mistake is changing too much of the campus in her first year there.
And then that goes back to like that 3-a-day thing and then trying to change.
You have to try it, you have to live with it, and then you can make it your own. Also, when you go someplace new, people don't necessarily trust you right off the
Mhm.
which is understandable. It depends kind of on the circumstances before your arrival, but there's a level of we don't know each other yet. It's like
Oh,
almost like dating.
I can tell you that the kids hated me at Gatesville when I first arrived.
Yeah.
And it was one of those kind of things that like I didn't come here because of any other reason than there's a job and I want
But
to.
they don't, and it's,
Kids are kids.
kids don't realize that. Parents don't realize that either. Parents, a lot of people and community members, they don't realize what actually goes into running a program or the things we're required to do or the things we're unable to do. It's just that's misunderstood a lot of the time.
Yeah. And so just trying not to change too much too fast.
But true freedom means giving permission to people to misunderstand you. Um, but you can't change things too fast. You can't shake everything up and expect people to still want to be around. And it's not necessarily because you're doing anything that's not better for everyone, but too much change at one time, it's kind of hard to digest.
Yes. And that's really difficult. And I don't know. That's why like you have to be careful with like contest schedules, number of contests you actually go to, all those types of things. Like you got to be careful of that.
I know this is anecdotal. I've never witnessed this happen, but I've heard of people coming to contests on the wrong day. Like loading a bus of kids up, full equipment truck, showing up to a contest site, and it being a week displaced.
Check your calendars, folks.
Check your calendars.
Check your calendars. So, but I've also seen people show up to contests and not have everything that they need.
Well, yes. I think at any point we've all forgotten something. I had a kid actually one time at at UIL. This was a long time ago. But I am a very meticulous packer, and if you play a piece that has a lot of gear on it, especially and some percussionists aren't good at this, which I wonder how they get from place to place with all their gear. But I had a kid improvise and like use sticks for a clave part. And afterwards I said, why didn't you just pick up the claves? He said, I thought we didn't bring them. It's like they were on stage.
Yeah.
They were the same place we always put them. And he just, I don't know.
Had flute players forget flutes, go into a marching contest. The marching shoes is one where kids will.
Yes, I saw you get onto a kid one time because he came up and told you in the parking lot of the marching contest that he didn't have shoes.
Yep.
That's just a life lesson.
It's like,
You got to double check that you have all your stuff.
and and we do that like before I think that's the most aggravating thing is that we do a uniform check prior to getting on the buses, and then they take them off, and then they forget them.
Well, and some of us just have ADHD, and that's not a executive functioning skill that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen drum major podiums be forgotten.
I've seen that as well. Forgetting instruments is fairly common. Forgetting music is even more common. Kids are really afraid to tell you if they forgot their music.
Oh, that's happened. We have a certain drummer that I know has forgotten music for UIL before.
Kids are also afraid, and I understand why, and I try to always tell them, like, it is okay if this happens. Kids are afraid to tell you if they have the wrong music in the sight reading room. Double check that all the kids have the right music in the sight reading room.
Yeah,
like treble clef euphonium,
yes,
that kind of thing.
Yes. I've gotten really good at if I start to like get upset or like I am on the verge of word vomit, I just walk away.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm not going to deal with this right now. I'm going to come back to you later because it's better for everyone involved.
Which is funny because you don't get super mad at me super often, but when you do, and this is the last maybe 3 to 4 years thing that you've learned to do that. But my instinct is to follow you, which then is not productive for either of us because I just want to figure out what the problem is or console him, and he just wants to be away from everyone.
Yeah, it's just
So he doesn't word vomit.
yeah, my family history, like everyone in my family has a hot temper. And whenever they get upset, it is all bets are off. We are going to come after you and every single little insecurity you might have. And so I had to train myself really early on.
I'm very sensitive too. I'm very
Yeah,
sensitive.
I had to train myself really early on. Just walk away. Don't say that thing that just popped into your head. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Well, me being sensitive is why I've tried to please people for so long, I think. And I'm over it now.
She's coming after everyone.
Yeah, I am.
Something else, because we live in the age of technology, you have to be careful with what equipment you have plugged in to any type of broadcasting.
This was listener submitted, but I'm not going to tell you who it was.
Yeah, we had a listener that had been plugged. They had their, I think, their personal device.
Yep, on a projector,
a projector.
like airplaying or
Yes.
whatever.
And their notifications came across the big screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, just be aware of.
Do not disturb is a thing.
Yes.
Just be aware. Maybe be aware if you're going to plug your personal device into a.
Yeah. How about you just don't do?
Or don't do it, you know.
Yeah, I'm like,
Sometimes,
don't do those things.
Yeah. That's probably the best answer. Don't do it. But if you have to, be aware.
So, what is happening with Gen Z?
Oh, next gen talk. Are we ready for
Yeah,
next?
I think we're ready.
They're still up in arms about TikTok because it was banned and then 12 hours later it was back.
Yeah, I can't. I can't. I'm not in that invested with the TikTok.
Well, I didn't expect it to stay gone. And all of these people were saying tearful goodbyes. I know that other people were watching it the same way that I was, but it's like you're saying goodbye. We all know it's coming back.
Yeah. I just
I was there when they shut down Vine. It will be okay.
Yeah.
Like we all used to have a MySpace page.
Is MySpace still operational?
I don't. Do you want me to go to
I
MySpace right now? I don't think so.
Yeah, is the Space Jam website still operational?
I hope so. I'm not sure. MySpace. Yes,
Oh.
you can have a MySpace
Oh
page.
my goodness gracious. Things that
Yep.
I did not know about. Is anybody still on my right
Dolly
in.
Parton on the front page of my.
Her birthday was recently.
Was it really?
Yes. I think it was today.
Should I join MySpace?
No, don't.
Should we market the podcast on MySpace?
That name.
Catch us on MySpace.
Yeah, don't catch us on MySpace. It's okay. Yeah, Dolly's a national treasure.
Oh, I know.
Huh.
Well, that's been the next gen talk. Have you? This has been a weird week because we've had a long weekend, but have you heard anything good this week?
Have I heard anything good this week? I heard some really, really great things from Megan Zerwisky from Red Oak Middle School and some of the teaching things.
She was the clinician.
Yeah.
Mhm. I missed all of this. I didn't get to go.
Yeah, it was pretty good. That was pretty good. And then just talking to people was pretty, like,
Yeah.
some of the good stories that they were giving.
This is, I mean, that's kind of my favorite part about going to CME. It kind of just like fills your cup a little bit. I hate that phrase, but just talking to people and interacting with people that you don't get to see all the time and watching people teach that you don't ever get to see teach. You can learn so much by watching someone else.
That's like Megan was very meticulous with like her notes and the ideas she had and the progress and progression of the rehearsal that she wanted to do. And she was great. She was great with the kids, just like a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. That's always refreshing to see too, especially if you feel like you're in a rut
Mhm.
teaching or
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah, and that's like for me, that was the way I felt this marching season. And I said that to you several times. Like I didn't feel like I was doing my best teaching.
Yeah.
And like you were like in my corner a whole lot about it. Like, no, you're doing great and things like that. And I just felt really bad about the way I was teaching. We all need a cheerleader, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not a good one, but
Oh, no,
I
you're
try.
great cheerleader. Well, what's in your ears this week?
You know, and I said this earlier, but I felt like the junior high sub non-varsity band made a lot of progress. And it's not necessarily the best thing that I've heard, but it made me feel the best.
Mhm.
And someone I used to work with, Ken, he always used to say that some bands are Groundhog Day bands where you just come in every day and you have to teach the same thing over and over again, and every day was a new day for them. But for you, you're just reliving the same thing over and over again. So it's really easy to get stuck in that. But I feel like they've made a lot of progress, and it was just nice to hear that they're doing the things that they're doing now.
Yeah.
And that just makes you feel really good.
Yeah, that makes me also think about some of the attributes we need to have as like educators. Is that every day is a new day, and every day is a new beginning for each.
Well, you never know what's going on in a kid's life. And sometimes you know, sometimes you don't. You don't know how they woke up that morning. You don't know if they got to have breakfast. You don't know what their home situation is. You don't know if someone yelled at them before they came to school. You don't know if they failed the test in the last period. They're kids. They have bigger emotions than us most of the time, not all the time. But you never know.
On the way to work.
You do?
No.
I don't ride with you all the way to work. I don't know. I thought you were serious.
Silent sobs. Silent sobs.
Wow. I cry on the way to work sometimes.
That-
Depends on the day.
It depends if you're dropping off our newborn son.
No, it depends on if the twins are throwing things at me.
Shoes go flying quite.
That happens sometimes.
But I think that's something that we also forget as like that we all have to be better about. It's just like every day's a new day. That one kid, you can't always treat him like he's the worst kid.
I don't ever treat any kid. I hope I don't. Like there's no such thing as a bad kid. Kids just make bad choices.
Mhm.
So I hope I never do that. Sometimes we all have short tempers sometimes, but
So, who has been the biggest inspiration to you throughout your journey in music?
I will say that when I was in elementary school, and this is probably why I like music so much, and I haven't thought about this until recently, but I saw someone post something about it. But my elementary music teacher from kindergarten through 4th grade, she was amazing. She really was. And she was kind of had this infectious joy, and she was so smart. Um, she actually had a master's degree in Baylor, I think, in conducting, and she was teaching at like my small school. And she used to have this guitar, and it was a black and white. I think it was a Stratocaster, but she called it Oreo. But she was so passionate about teaching music and like so good at working with young kids and made every kid want to come to the music classroom. And so I had her for a long time. And my 5th grade year, she left and went to a different district. So we had someone else. And I was already really into music by that time because I was, 10, 11. And the music teacher that we had, it was kind of just like a second thought. And that person also taught like a different class. They were teaching like a core class and having to teach music at the same time. But I just vividly remember like I really wanted to play an instrument, and my sister had been in band. Like I really wanted to do it. I was very interested in like figuring out things on the piano and so on and so forth. And that person told me that I was not musically inclined. Like, I don't even know why he would say that to, like, a 10-year-old, but he was like, You don't have any, musical skill."
Hmm.
Yeah. So, that person was not an inspiration, but the music teacher I had before then, she was wonderful. And I think she inspired a lot
Hmm.
of young kids. She unfortunately, about 10, 11 years ago, she died of cancer. And so I've never gotten to talk to her about, like, where I am now and what I do, and I don't even know if she would have remembered me because she taught all the elementary students, obviously, but
All 15 are y'all.
shut up. But she was a big inspiration.
Yeah.
What about you? Who inspired you?
Um, my biggest inspiration period, I think, is like my mother.
Hmm.
Just
I
because
was expecting you to say that.
she
For music, at least.
yeah, I think through anything, like honestly, yeah, because she grinded, like she was a workhorse.
Your mother's a very resilient person.
Yes, she is one of my biggest cheerleaders.
Oh, for sure.
And she's
Everyone's.
yeah, yeah, she will make friends with anyone.
If Jose is in your corner, then Jose's mom is in your corner.
Yeah, that's the way that works.
Yeah.
I mean, she shows up to my contest still.
Yeah.
She shows up to state marching contests. She shows up to area marching contests. She'll show up to UIL. She lives 2 hours away from us, and she'll still do that stuff.
Yeah.
She's great. But she was really an advocate for like me being in band and like doing the things I did in music. But like she had my sister when she was still in high school. And so like there's actual photos of my sister at my parents' graduation. And just seeing her go and like work and do those things and then go back to college and
Yeah.
get her degree.
She has a master's.
She has a master's degree, but like at one point in time, I think all of the family other than my father was in college.
Yeah.
And
At the same time.
at the same time, and it was just like absolutely bonkers that she worked that hard
Yeah.
and like supported me through that process, supported my brother, supported my sister, and just was like a figure in that. And she just always believed in my ability in music. And like she did some of her own personal reports over the tuba. And it's just like, why are you doing a report over Patrick Sheridan and Sam Palafian?
Your mom's doing breathing gym.
Yeah. for the darts, you
Yep.
know. And she would be like one of my biggest advocates and and a champion for me.
Yeah.
And
And I'm glad you have that, because where would you be if you didn't have that?
yeah,
Because we have plenty of people that I've had kids tell me that they're not allowed to practice at home, or their parents don't want to listen to them practice. So what a joy it is for you to have an inspiration.
yeah. We have a kid in our band program who plays to the cows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What a
But that
phrase.
that's because he thinks it's fun.
Yeah, he'll be playing his instrument here.
I know. I love that. I love cows.
He's pretty great. We like him a whole lot. Do you have any final like goof to really?
I don't know. I've made so many mistakes. It's hard to pick one.
S- So I have one more goof that is not my goof.
Is it my goof?
No, it's not your goof either.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you call everyone by their correct name. So hopefully our next guest used to be in our same home region. His name's Jesus
Yeah.
Perez. He is at Cross Plains.
Also, if you're not a person that's not very good with facial recognition, maybe just kind of ask gently to be reminded of someone's name if you're not able to place it,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Because Jesus and I both have facial hair. We're both of similar skin tone. Our names start with a J.
Yes.
Um,
That's a mistake I've heard a lot too, is announcers mispronouncing both of your names at marching contests.
yes.
Oh, I thought of a mistake. My name was left off of the program for the state marching band contest.
I submitted.
I know.
I submit.
Jose's name twice.
Yeah.
It said Jose Sanchez, head director, and then it said assistant director,
Jose
Jose
I
Sanchez.
just wanted all the glory.
I know. Dare you?
Yeah. But I signed up for a marching contest a couple years ago, and in this area, and
Jesus hasn't worked in this region in maybe
what
10 years, something.
10 years, and so I signed up for this marching contest, and in the schedule for this marching contest, it says Gatesville, Jesus Perez. And I was like, I submitted a Google form for that, specifically saying Jose Sanchez.
J first name, Spanish last name.
Yeah. So I've been called Jesus many a time. As early as last year, I was called Jesus.
Yeah. And if, people's minds get blown when you're in the same room together.
Yes.
It's like we didn't know, we'd never seen both of you in the same room together. So we kind of thought you were the same person.
Yeah. Once a year, I post a photo of him
Yeah.
on my Facebook saying, this is the favorite photo of myself. Just to dig in on that, because we are not the same person.
Well, now people know. If you didn't know, they're different people.
So I think that's all I have.
I don't know. We make a lot of mistakes. So don't feel bad if you make mistakes. Everyone does it.
Yeah, everyone does it.
We've made a ton of terrible mistakes. But you know what? We listen and we don't judge. So we'll see you back here next time. Bye.
We out.